I can't believe we're doing this again, but I'm bored. Let's watch Jesterbell. Okay, so the thing is that I was sent this video about 4 or 5 times over the last 24 hours of people saying, you need to talk about how awful the takes are in this video. And so I was like, am I debunking, or like, is she lying about stuff? And they're like, no, it's just bad takes. So this is simply me doing a request for a bunch of people that wanted to see me talk about Jesterbell again. But let's do it anyway. I mean, here's the thing. I think that it's very obvious that she's doing this for outrage views. Like, she's definitely doing this for that reason. So I'm assuming that a lot of these takes are going to be bad. So it might be a little bit more fun to do this one than like debunking misinformation. It's just kind of spoiling bad takes. So let's go.
Hello everyone, Jesterbell here, once again the female Frodo Baggins. Today, July is upon us, obviously. We already took out Jurassic Park Rebirth, which everyone is going to see despite it being a horrible movie. Such is life.
Oh, but it's Jurassic World Rebirth. That's the name of the movie. But doesn't that kind of destroy the narrative that you guys do? Like, if it's a bad movie, people aren't going to spend money and go see it. So if people are spending a bunch of money to go see a bad movie, then it seems like a lot of the stuff that you guys complain about is just all for nothing. It's almost like it's just outrage material to get clicks, and that it has no value whatsoever. Let's continue.
But I want to take the time to talk about the upcoming Fantastic Four movie, because right now, this summer is going through the initial predictions that Jurassic World Rebirth is probably going to make a lot of money, even though it's a really terrible movie. But then, of course, the next 2 movies on the list are Superman and Fantastic Four. I do not have high hopes for Superman because, and as some negative reviews have already leaked, we have to see how this week goes. But I gotta say, of the 3 movies on this...
So, like, why are the negative reviews impacting you? Shouldn't you be making up your own mind? As someone like myself, we talk about movies and stuff on social media and videos. Why would you let someone else's negative review prevent you from going into something with your best foot forward? Like, I never let that stuff affect me. I read them, but I never let it affect me. It doesn't ever impact my judgment on something. And matter of fact, I say reviews are really sort of just something you kind of look at and then you go, okay, and then you move on. Like, why would that impact you? Furthermore, we don't even know if they're real reviews. There's been questioning whether or not the people that wrote it are sincere. So anyway, let's continue.
List. The movie that I wanted to really be looking forward to was Fantastic Four. Listen, I could care less about another Jurassic World movie. I wish that this franchise was not being milked to death, but there you are. Superman, I think me and DC are just kind of getting divorced right now. But I love Marvel. I'm such a big fan of Marvel, and I probably always will be. So, but...
Maybe it's just me, but I get really annoyed by people obviously reading scripts in their videos. I don't know if you guys hate that or not. Like, fair enough if you're reading an article or you have some information that you need to read from. But one thing I hate is when someone is like, they've got their thing down here and they're like, and today I wanted to go to the store to get some stuff from the store. And like, the whole thing is scripted out. I don't know. Something about it just feels inauthentic to me. It's just a nitpick. I'm not saying she has to change the way she does it, but something about it always just drives me up the wall. I'd rather somebody just speak directly off the cuff.
I'm not excited for this Fantastic Four movie. And even as they did a new trailer last week or so, and I think that they finally started to put focus on the other characters, not just Sue, I still could not get excited for it. And I know that
just let you guys know, that's most likely her setting up the fact that she's going to complain about Sue. I haven't watched this whole video yet, but this whole narrative that Sue is the lead character of the movie has already been debunked. Several people have said that, yeah, she's like the foundation of the team. She's the backbone, the core of the team. But we've seen clips where Reed is front and center. So I think it's just more or less one of those things where it's the online narrative about Sue. We can't really debunk it because nobody's seen the movie yet. At least no one that's talked about it online in reality. There's a lot of people that live in a fantasy world that pretend they've seen the movie, but yeah, I would much rather see the movie and make up my mind about that part of it because it's all hearsay.
Marvel is desperate to get butts back into seats, but I just don't see how it's going to happen. So on the off chance that there are any Marvel people who are soul searching as this film comes out and don't understand why it isn't getting so much hype or why people were turned off, I mean,
didn't the trailer break records and stuff? I don't really know what you mean by hype. Hype is very subjective. It's really about like a combination of algorithm and who you surround yourself with and the communities you're a part of. Whenever I'm talking about it, it seems like everybody's very hype about it. I'm seeing it all over social media. I've seen advertisements for it everywhere. I went to get pizzas the other day from Little Caesars. I got one of the Fantastic Four pizzas. It's all over billboards in my city. So I don't really know what you mean by hype. It's such a unmeasurable factor.
Made a list of 5 reasons, condensed into 5 reasons of how I lost my hype for Fantastic Four. And let me tell you, this is a big deal because for years I wanted there to be an MCU Fantastic Four movie. Okay. I thought that they would be the ones to do it right. I wanted to see these characters that I believed in from the comics finally done well. But gradually things came out to destroy my hype on this level. Okay, so let's get into it.
So I'm curious, she said she's got some things here. I'm curious which ones are actual real things and things that are speculatory. Like what might happen or what something might be. Because I would say this, if your hype level is lowered because you are listening to people give you fake information or unverifiable information, then that is your fault. It's not the studio's fault. That's your fault. If you're the one reading Reddit or reading Twitter posts or whatever, and those things that are coming from any source under the sun has ruined your hype for a movie that's coming out, and you're not just looking at the stuff that they're putting out, the promotional stuff they're putting out, and going with that, then it is your fault that this is happening. It's not their fault. So I want to see if the things she addresses are their fault or if it's her fault.
Once again, this is an open letter to Marvel. If any of you happens to come out here and listens to what the fans have to say about why they're not excited anymore, then here it is.
But what are they going to do with this? Like, what are they supposed to do? The movie's done. The movie comes out in like 3 weeks. So, like, are they going to change the movie for you? Like, what's the point of this? What's the issue with, like, I can understand if you did this after you saw the movie and you're like, here are things that I wish they would have changed in the movie. But you're doing an open letter to Marvel about a movie that comes out in 3 weeks. Like literally, what's the point of this? Okay, let's go.
Number 5, the lackluster casting.
Okay.
Now, ever since, like the casting is just so much has to do with the casting. Yes, people who you don't think look the part can surprise you in a lot of ways. But with Fantastic Four, there was a particular sense of just being underwhelmed by everyone.
All right, it's pretty much been debunked for many years now that star power, star quality doesn't put asses in seats. It just doesn't. There's no actor out there that you can name that guarantees your movie is going to make a lot of money. They picked Pedro Pascal because he's been attached to popular things, but there's still no guarantee that's going to put asses in seats. You have actors like The Rock, Will Smith, Tom Cruise, Ryan Gosling. You have all these actors out there that on paper should be Hollywood stars that are guaranteed blockbuster money, but that's just not the truth. So it comes down to, are the actors in the roles good in those roles, and will that word of mouth pick up the second weekend for a film? The days of like big stars, big celebrities driving people to theaters, it doesn't work anymore. So right off the bat, you did no research on why casting is done the way it is now versus back then. I've talked about this in live streams. I've made videos about it. Like the days of the Hollywood star driving people to theaters are over. They're done.
Because it's one thing if you cast actors that aren't really known, but it's another thing if you cast people who you just cannot see in this role. Like if you want to go to the old Fantastic Four 2005 movie, I know that movie has a lot of problems, but I will say that the characters looked exactly like their comic book counterparts. Like especially the guy who played Ben Grimm, blanking on his name, but they looked exactly who they were supposed to be playing from the comics.
So the weird thing here is this is the absolute most general audience thing you could possibly do. They just have to look like the characters. You don't care how good they are. You just want them to look like the characters. Explain to me in a actual critical sense how that makes any sense at all. How does that make any sense at all? I want the person playing the role to give a shit about the role they're playing and embody the character. I don't care if they look like they were drawn or they're real life drawings of the comic book characters. I don't care about that anymore. We've grown beyond that. We see there's lots of proof that characters over the years who don't look exactly like the ones in the comics have succeeded in those roles. One of the ones that I'm not particularly fond of, but everybody seems to love, is Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman looks nothing like Wolverine. Matter of fact, Wolverine in the comics over the last decade or so, last 15 years, has been drawn more to look like Hugh Jackman in many instances because of that reason. So that's a prime example of someone that is not a short, stocky, really hairy guy that looks like Wolverine. Like he doesn't look like Wolverine, and he did the role fine. So this again is just like, what year is this? What year is this that you feel like the characters The most important thing is for the actors to look exactly like they came off the pages of the comics. Look, I'm okay with it being like a circumstantial thing. Like they did the castings and the actor looks identical to the character in comics and actually does a great job in the audition process. If that happens, wonderful. Congratulations, we did something amazing. If not, I want you to cast the person that does the best job because that's going to make the best movie. General audiences do not give a fuck about these things. You guys have to understand that. This is a terminally online thing. Terminally online.
Reading all the other flaws of those movies. None of the people that they have cast for this role, except for perhaps Vanessa Kirby, look right for the character.
I also want to point out that the actors looking like those characters didn't make the movies like massive hits. Like they weren't massive hits. We're not talking about they ran away with the box office because the Thing in his human form looked like the one from the comics. And so ding, 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 money left on the table kind of thing. No. That's not what we're talking about here.
They are playing. Johnny Storm is supposed to be this super young adult hot guy, and Ben Grimm is supposed to kind of be like this bald,
hot is subjective,
boxer type,
just
and Reed Richards is supposed to look like the smartest man in the world, and so you're
saying Pedro Pascal looks stupid or not intelligent? How does someone look smart? How does that happen? Do all geniuses have like there's a certain look that all geniuses have to look like? What is that? What is that? Describe for me in 5 ways what a genius looks like.
None of them look like their characters, and none of them really have been in things that would convince me that they can behave like their characters either. And another problem with this casting, apart from it just being a sauceless casting, like Vanessa Kirby, for example, I hadn't seen her in anything else other than the Mission Impossible movies as a supporting villain. And while she was fine there was nothing about that casting that excited me for her playing the character.
But you just said a minute ago that she looks the most like her comic book counterpart. So is it about the work they've done previously? Is that what it is? Like the fact that they've worked hard and they've been in things that you know, and they're great actors, or that they look like the comic book versions? Because you just said, I believe you just said, paraphrasing here, that she's the one that looks the most like the comic book version. But now you're saying that she's probably not going to be good because you're not excited. So if she's never done anything exciting, but she looks just like Sue Storm, then you are just contradicting the argument you made like 20 seconds ago.
And when I saw them in their suits, nothing about the costuming around them made me exciting for them. There's nobody who is visually striking in this group as their characters. And they can be, as seen in Marvel Rivals once again. But also, the cast is all...
Well, Marvel Rivals is not a live-action thing. It's an animated game. So, I mean, it's... What are we doing here?
Just each of them too old for their roles. Once again, Johnny Storm is supposed to...
Also, we're ages too. Cool.
Start as a teenager and be in his early 20s. And they're only supposed to have been in their roles for a few years, according to this movie. But they cast Joseph Quinn, who is already into his 30s playing the character. And then Vanessa Kirby is already pushing 40. And
so what's the criteria for you? I'm confused. Is it they have to look like the comic book versions, or is it that these actors are too old? Or because they weren't in anything that you've liked? Your criteria keeps changing here. Like you keep introducing new reasons why it doesn't work for you, and then one will contradict the other. So like, is it they have to look like the character, but then you said Vanessa hasn't been anything that's excited you. And then you've also said that they're too old for the roles. So which one of those things is the problem?
Pedro Pascal is in his 50s. So it's odd that they went for people who are 10 to 15 years too old for their roles. And it's another reason why the casting is just so poor for this.
So do you know the exact age of the characters in the comics? Which run are they going for? What era is it? How old were they in that era? Like what like, do you know these things? You haven't seen the movie. So you have no context for why they might be the ages they are, or what the setup for it is. You have no idea. You're still mad about it. Okay.
There was nobody who excited people, and no one who even just visually looked exciting and surprised people as these characters. So that was my fifth reason. My fourth reason is the 60s aesthetic for the film. Now, a lot of people out there, this is the part that they will defend because they think that it might look interesting. But I think on a broader scale, for the general audiences and the silent majority, I think that this was a bad choice.
The silent majority is a fallacy. Like, what silent majority out there is afraid to speak up about not liking the MCU? Fam, for real. What silent majority is quiet about the fucking MCU? of all things. The silent majority. So you're saying there's a big chunk of people out there who are not happy about the MCU that just happen to also be really fucking quiet? That's crazy. It's also a fallacy. But I want to point out that the 60s aesthetic is something that I think is going to make the film work. Hear me out on this one. We've tried modern day in two different ways. We tried a modern day campy version of it in the early 2000s. We tried a modern day realistic horror movie version of it in 2015. So we've tried two different ways in modern times. I think that putting it in the 60s where the characters can actually be that Kirby-esque vibe that we had in the comics is 100% the right decision. Not only the right decision, but possibly the best decision they've made about this movie. Because it allows them to do something that the MCU itself would never do, which allows them to go into a world that doesn't exist on the main MCU continuity and tell a story they couldn't tell in the MCU continuity. It also allows them to make the Fantastic Four the stars, the first family, the superheroes that they are in the comic books, with the respect that they get in the comic books. They could never have done that in the main continuity because we've had so many amazing and crazy things happen that these four characters would have been seen as just nobodies. Nobodies in that sea of movies. It allows them to put out a movie that doesn't require a ton of homework, which is another reason why putting it in the 60s in another area other than the MCU is a brilliant decision. But let's hear why you don't like it. I'm going to give you a chance. I'm speaking over you. I'm presuming a lot. Let's hear what you have to say because maybe your argument is better than mine. So let's hear it.
I don't want a Fantastic Four movie that is doing this 60s retro cartoon thing. It's not really fitting for them. When
you just said that you like Marvel Rivals version of them, which is literally a motherfucking cartoon version. You literally just said that. You praise Marvel Rivals for making them look that way. But now that's not what you want. Fuck, can you make up your mind?
It's the superhero characters. You know, the characters are always in the era that the stories are being written. So all the characters who were invented in the 60s, like Spider-Man and the Avengers, they were in the 60s environment. And when it got into the 70s, they were just in the 70s. So it doesn't really fit for me going back to the 60s aesthetic. I wanted something modern. That might all just be personal taste, but I think it would have worked.
It's 100% personal taste. And it doesn't make sense based on every other complaint that Marvel has had recently from you guys. Like, you want them to take more risk and do more creative things. And then they do stuff like this. And then you say, well, they could have just put it in the main continuity. Do you want main continuity like same, or do you want different shit? It sounds to me like you're arguing two different things. I can't wait to hear what your third, second, and first complaints are.
Better. But here's the big problem that I think is a bit more objective with the 60s marketing for this film is some people have compared it to The Incredibles and how there was a 60s vibe to that movie, which was largely based upon the Fantastic Four itself. But here's the difference. In The Incredibles, the 60s aesthetic that it was basing itself off of was akin to spy thrillers of the 60s, like James Bond and the like.
Right, but the Fantastic Four is not a spy movie. It's not a spy film. The Fantastic Four has a different vibe. So you're telling me that your problem is that two things that have a 60s aesthetic are different tonally? And that's why one is worse than the other? I love The Incredibles, but this is a stretch. This is a big stretch to me.
Theme of Incredibles is very similar to the James Bond theme. And so that conveyed an action and adventure movie with a lot of thrills to it.
Which is not what the Fantastic Four is.
Fantastic Four First Steps is going with. And you have to understand that the 60s is going to encompass a lot of aesthetics and culture. But the one that Fantastic Four First Steps is going for is akin to what you would see in cartoons and advertisements and sitcoms of the day. It's a very cutesy, petite sort of thing. That once again, it invokes a lot of what we would see in sitcoms. And that's what we see in the advertisement of this show. It's very much akin to WandaVision that was basing itself off of that. And
which was a very well-received series. I mean, what are we even talking about, y'all? Like, what even are we talking about?
Hired the same director. However, that is not something that gets me excited for a big action superhero / science fiction movie that's supposed to be about the coming of Galactus and the potential destruction of this world.
So you want a James Bond spy thriller with Galactus. That's what you want. You want them to do 60s spy thriller and just introduce Galactus. That is your pitch.
It's not something that gets me excited for superheroics. Why would you advertise a movie that is supposed to be science fiction and action and put an aesthetic over that's akin to comedies and sitcoms of a bygone era?
Are you kidding me? Almost so many classic science fiction movies from back in the day took place in that vibe, in that era. Retrofuturism is a very popular thing right now. It's extremely popular. A lot of people are looking back at that era and going, yeah, we want more of this. That's the vibe we want. So Marvel is going, hey, we have an opportunity to provide that with the Fantastic Four. So we're going to do that because it fits with the Fantastic Four. This is the perfect opportunity to do it. And you're saying they shouldn't do that because somehow the Kirby era Fantastic Four that did lean into this, did lead into all of this, is bad for the team that was created in that era. And your argument is it should have been more like The Incredibles and a spy thriller. I'm glad you are not in charge of making this movie.
That makes no sense to me. It's really a mismatch of tones that is not making me excited for this film at all. And since the very first trailer, where we didn't know much about the plot, it is really what has brought down my excitement for the film. I think that it was the wrong choice, and we've already seen it in WandaVision and Loki, so it doesn't even feel like it's a fresh thing from the directors. I think it is definitely what is actually bringing down the hype for this film.
So I'm not here. I want to reiterate this. This is me sort of just calling out bad takes in this video. There's not a lot of debunking to do unless she just lies about something. And right now, this is all subjective stuff. I think she's absolutely wrong. I think she's 100% wrong. I think if the movie is going to be bad, none of these things, like the things she's talking about here, I don't think are going to factor in it too much. I mean, some people are going to prefer other actors in certain roles, but I think the aesthetic of it is right. I think it's the right choice. If it fails, due to being placed in the 60s completely, then that means that they have failed on a fundamental level. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about the movie just not being a good movie. And I don't think that's going to have much to do with like retrofuturism, in my opinion.
But number 3, I want to say is, and once again, this is going on what matters most to me, like what is affecting me the most, not in the order of when we found out about it. So we found about this point later, but this is another point that I want to say brings it down for me is the overemphasis on Sue Storm and the red flags that gives me. Now, I've said this before, and this is why this is lower on the list, that it would be no problem doing a Fantastic Four movie where Sue Storm is more of the central character of the film. We've seen her in all the advertisements, front and center.
There would be no problem with it, but she's going to say there's a problem with it, right? So there's no problem with it, is what she said. There would be no problem with it. But what is the problem? If you don't have an issue with Sue Storm being the featured character, which by the way, we don't even know if that's true or not. I want to point out this is all hearsay. We don't know. We haven't seen the movie, so we don't know. But she says there would be no problem with it. So let's see why there's a problem with it now. What is the reason specifically in your take that makes any sense for it to be a problem if she is the central character? Considering it's a team movie and she might have a little bit more time than everybody else, maybe a little bit more than Johnny or the Thing. She might, share screen time with Reed or whatever. What is the issue with this?
Except for the most recent trailer, which I wondered was if it was a response to some criticism. But this has very much been Sue Storm's advertising. They've confirmed she is the leader of the team in the movie, and they've confirmed...
That's not been confirmed. That is not confirmed. The interview that I read confirmed that they were going to focus on making sure people knew that she was like the center of this family, that she's like the core of the family. And she's also been the leader of the team plenty of times. If in fact she is. I mean, there's been no confirmation of it, but if she's been the leader of the team in the 80s, the 90s. She's led the team through entire like storylines. So there should be no issue with that. What is the issue with Sue Storm being the leader of the team? What's the problem with that? Is she not qualified to do it? Is for some reason she's not you would have to give me a tangible reason why Sue Storm, one of the most iconic and well-loved women in Marvel Comics, is not qualified to lead a team that she's been a part of for many years. What's the reason for that?
In behind-the-scenes screenings, that she might be the one to save the day at the end unless they change the ending, while the other characters allegedly might get more of the shaft. And Reed Richards especially, I think, is kind of getting the shaft in regards to Sue Storm. Why that is a problem for me is because of the pattern that has happened with Disney and Marvel projects, where they will elevate the female character, but in order to do that, will downplay the male character. And that imbalance has caused historically a lot of resentment for...
Okay. Let's do a little bit of math. I'm going to look. I actually have this because I've talked about this years ago. Let me look, and I'm going to update my math quickly. I want to tell you what the percentage is of men versus women in leads of Marvel movies are across all the properties since the beginning, since phase 1. Let's do this math because this is always a lot of fun for me. All right, so I did an update to the math here. We're going to go with phase 1. Phase 1, 6 male leads, 0 female leads in any of the projects in theaters in phase 1. Phase 2, 6 male leads, 0 female leads. So no women leading films in phase 2 either. We get to phase 3. Finally, we get one woman-led film with Captain Marvel in that phase, and that broke the internet. It broke the internet. The first woman leading a Marvel movie, and there's been nothing but bile and hatred for Captain Marvel since that happened. Even though the movie made over $1 billion, nothing but hate for that. The hate started with that movie. So spare me with this bullshit that all of a sudden it's becoming a problem. No, it was a problem from the very beginning. The first woman to lead a Marvel movie caused the internet to break down and have a tantrum. And they've never let up on it. Brie Larson has received massive amounts of hate in phase 3. The very first woman in leading a Marvel movie, and that was the beginning of this. So this revisionist shit that you're doing doesn't work. This is what I'm talking about with lies. This is what makes me really want to debunk this shit. These absolute lies. And we have phase 4, which is 4 men leads, 3 women leads in that one. That one's the most balanced out of all of them. Still people are hating on it, even though the movies in that particular phase were kind of all over the place in terms of like what people considered quality. It really didn't have anything to do with the fact that women were in lead roles. Then we have phase 5. We have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which is literally just an Ant-Man movie. Wasp was barely in that film. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was ensemble. It's mostly a rocket movie. The Marvels was a woman-led film. We had 3 women in that film. So that's the first one in phase 5. Deadpool and Wolverine speaks for itself. Captain America Brave New World speaks for itself. And then Thunderbolts, which is an ensemble cast, but Yelena was one of the leads. So we had 2 movies in phase 5 out of 6 movies that had women in lead roles. And both of those movies were ensemble cast. Both those were ensemble cast. So if you want to look at the percentages, which I have in front of me here, there are 88.6% Marvel films led by men and 11.4% led by women. So this revisionist history bullshit argument is so dumb. There's no way you can tell me that 11.4% of all of the Marvel movies that have came out over the last 5 phases, that's too many women in lead roles. And that's turned people away. Anyway, let's continue.
Male characters, and it does not create a successful male character either. Because Marvel and Disney has done that pattern so much, and I've seen the discourse that it leads to, and it doesn't really create for compelling characters either way, that makes me very, very concerned.
So women don't make compelling characters? Is that your argument? Can you give me a reason why? Your reason why women don't make compelling characters in Marvel is because some fans on the internet get upset and cry about it. The internet discourse is the reason why. That's as deep as it goes with you? That's crazy.
About this movie. I want to see Reed Richards as the leader of this team and Sue Storm as the backbone. If Reed Richards was being done really well in these promotionals and he looked great, and then we might be hearing interviews about how it's actually Sue Storm who's more the central character in a story with her giving birth to Franklin, then I would have some red flags for the sole reason of how this kind of plotline has been handled.
Hey, but guess what? We haven't seen the movie yet. Like, all of this is really bad speculation. This is like based on internet drama, articles from unverifiable sources. I've seen the interviews. I actually do a podcast where I watch these interviews. I've not heard anything in those podcasts that made me think that Reed Richards is going to be pushed down because of Sue Storm. This is all projection and speculation.
From Disney Marvel before. But I would still be optimistic because of you can, in theory, make a story where Sue Storm is more the central character and have that work for Fantastic Four. But my problem is I'm already seeing the pattern where other characters need to be put down in order to elevate her because I'm not seeing great...
Where is the proof that other characters are being, quote unquote, put down to lift her up? You made the claim. It is on you to provide the proof. Where are you seeing that? Spoiler alert, nowhere. You are not seeing that anywhere. There is no proof that that is what is happening.
Things from Reed Richards. And that also tells me that not a lot is changing behind the scenes in terms of Marvel's policies and how they go about doing these movies. And that brings me to number 2. Now, this really should have been number 3 because in the terms of the timeline of these things happening, this happened first. But the reason why it's number 2 is because this is an even bigger reason for me than Sue Storm. Because Sue Storm could theoretically do a movie where she's more of the central character and have it work. But these next things are major problems for me, which if you'll recall, this is what really turned me against this film.
Okay.
The unnecessary changes of characters.
Okay.
What really turned me against...
Let me guess. You're going to bring up the clickbaitable headlines by Sue Storm and Johnny, where the quotes have been taken out of context or they're misunderstood by people who have no media literacy. Those are the things you're going to bring up. There might be more, but I think those are probably the 2. I guarantee number 1 is going to be Silver Surfer. I feel like it's going to be, the 2 women are too much. 2 women in a movie with like 5 guys is too much.
This film is when we did that interview talking about how they had to make changes to Johnny Storm's character because of the modern day. My problem with that is I don't agree that there was anything that was wrong with the archetype of Johnny Storm's character being a bit callous towards other people's feelings and being immature and being a ladies' man. And so those are his flaws that are important for him to get over as we see him grow. And it's defining when it comes to his character's attitude.
It's almost like you haven't seen the movie or read the script yet. It's almost like you don't know if those things are going to be character points. It's almost like we don't know enough information to make these judgment calls. He was talking about from his point of view, but he didn't write the movie. So his point of view isn't necessarily reflective of what is in the script. He might have played it the way he said it, but that doesn't mean that reflects the actual dialogue and things that are going to happen in the movie. You have to wait till the movie comes out.
For them to come forward and saying that we're changing all that for effectively no reason, no one would have a problem with Johnny Storm.
You don't know if it's for no reason because you haven't seen the fucking movie. You don't know if it's for no reason. You have no idea because you haven't seen the final product. You don't know the story in the film. So you are saying that they're changing this for no reason while having no context to base that on. You have no facts to base that on. You heard the interviews, you heard them talking about it, but outside of that, you have no context on this. It's crazy, the projection and the crafting in your mind. Like, these are bad takes. This is internet brain rot shit.
Having those flaws, it really turned me against the film because it told me these are not the characters that I liked from the comics. They changed them. These characters that I've been waiting to see on the big screen done right for so long are being changed once again, and you're not going to get to see them. But it was for completely unnecessary.
You know how many different versions we've had of the Fantastic Four since they've been created? I mean, we've had lots of different versions. Lots of them. Some of the most iconic versions aren't even the main continuity versions. So it's crazy to me that you're saying you don't want to see the Fantastic Four in the era they were created in the 60s. But then you're like, I also think they're changing the characters too much. Fam, we have a red alert here. Okay? She wants the fidelity of the characters from the fucking comics to be the same, but doesn't want the era that they came from to be the same. So she's asking, I want the 60s version, the original OG 60s version of the Fantastic Four, but I want you to take them out of the era they came from and plop them into 2025 and make them work in 2025 while also being exactly the same as they were in the 1960s. Fucking stupidity. This is stupidity. Why do people listen to folks like this? This makes me so fucking annoyed because she's talking out of two sides of her mouth on this one. She wants the same fucking versions from the original comics, but she doesn't want them in the same fucking environment they were in.
Reasons, thinking that there was going to be controversy over Johnny Storm and his more negative behaviors, which are portrayed in a negative light when there wouldn't have been. But also, there's just so many other.
Yeah, womanizing's not controversial at all. Totally okay. He could walk around, grab asses, grab boobs, tell women to go make a sandwich. All of that would have really worked in a 2025 Disney Marvel movie. Really would have. That would have been a great payoff. Great character journey in that one. Perfect stuff.
Movie that I don't understand. Like, Silver Surfer, for example, I don't have an emotional attachment to that character. And could a female Silver Surfer theoretically work? Yes. But there really was no reason for it. Why not just have Norrin Radd come in as the Silver Surfer?
It's almost like we haven't seen the movie. Why not do X thing? Why did they do Y thing? Why did they do Z thing? It doesn't make any sense because you guys speculate about a movie that you've not seen yet to the point where you're making up stories and asking questions that are gonna get answered in the fucking movie. Why are we not getting Norrin Radd Silver Surfer? I don't know. Maybe watch the fucking movie to find out why. Maybe do that. Or is it easier to get on the internet with no fucking investment whatsoever and complain about it, not knowing any context at all? Fuck.
That way, if you're doing the movie and we see Johnny Storm is Johnny Storm and Silver Surfer is Silver Surfer, it feels like we finally got the gang all together and we're doing them right. It was completely unnecessary to do a different version of Silver Surfer.
But you just said you don't want them from the era they're from. So make up your fucking mind. Do you want them, the fidelity to be there, or do you not want it to be there? Make up your fucking mind.
They're killing off the Silver Surfer Norrin Radd in the comics just to do this. It's completely unnecessary.
No, they're not. There's no correlation. There's causation correlation fallacy. You're just speculating. You're just speculating about this. We know they're going to cross over into another universe. We know we're going to get an incursion events between Doomsday and Secret Wars. This is all something that is coming. It's very well media literacy, context clues matter.
Change, just like what they were doing with Johnny Storm. But while I understand, at least, even though I vehemently disagree with where the changes to Silver Surfer and Johnny came from, what about the changes to Ben Grimm? I haven't enjoyed anything I've seen from Ben Grimm in this movie. Now,
the most comic book accurate looking version of the Thing we've ever had, ever in live action, the most accurate one, and you have an issue with it. This is going to be good. Let's see what you have to say about this. You're going to base your entire negative opinion on him by the fact that he seems to be a very soft-spoken character because he's rough around the edges in the movie, and they're trying to put a dichotomy in that. But you're going to have a problem with that. I'm sure.
Things happen because with Silver Surfer, it seems pretty obvious they wanted there to be more female characters that were prominent in the movie. With Johnny, apparently that they thought that his original personality had problems or something. But with Ben, why change him? Because Benjamin Grimm, the Thing, has a very distinct personality from the comics. You know, he's the tough ex-brawler from Yancey Street. He has a very specific accent and way that he talks. But for everything we've seen of the Thing in this movie, his demeanor and the way that he talks is more soft-spoken, and he's more akin to, say, Professor Hulk. And that is highly disappointing because while I at least know the source of why they made changes in other areas of this, I don't understand why they would change the Thing. One of the biggest personalities from the comics, and you would think the easiest one to adapt. And it brings up questions of why would you go through all the trouble to do the 60s aesthetic for this movie and use that to mask some of the comic bookiness, but then not even do the characters accurately.
Actually, they're putting in the 60s to make it more comic booky. What the fuck are you talking about? That's the purpose of putting it in the 60s, so they can have the flying cars and the retrofuturism that the Fantastic Four had during that era. You're sitting here arguing. It's like you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Honestly, maybe you are a massive nerd for Fantastic Four. Maybe you're a massive geek for all of this, but it's not giving me that now. You argued a second ago that you didn't like the fact that Sue could possibly be the leader, even though that's one of the most comic booky things they could have done with Sue, considering she's been the leader in several runs of the Fantastic Four. Some of them was pivotal stories. But here you're complaining that Ben Grimm doesn't have a certain personality quirk that you like, but you're dismissing an entire whole ass woman on the team because you just don't want to see her as the lead, because you speculate she's going to push men down, even though you haven't seen any proof of that. That's crazy.
More important than having Easter eggs and aesthetics that are similar to the comics. So it seems that after all these years of waiting to get an MCU Fantastic Four movie to see them done right on the big screen, they still, like the other movies before them, have chosen not to honor them in their comic book roots. The problem with the 2005 Fantastic Four...
Y'all, this is the most comic book Fantastic Four movie we've ever seen. Literally. It's literally the most comic booky. We got a whole ass Galactus walking through the streets. Silver Surfer's in it. All the characters are wearing white and blue, the same shades of white and blue that you see in those older eras. I mean, there's different versions, a glossy kind, but it's a white and blue era, whatever suits. The Thing looks the most like he's ever looked. We got fucking Herbie in the movie. Flying cars. The era is the 60s. This is the most comic booky Fantastic Four movie we've ever seen. I don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
Well, it was just a bit too edgy. Among other things, they just tried to make them too edgy, and they went even further with that and tried to make this dark science fiction narrative with the Josh Trank movie. This one isn't doing either of those things, but it still seems...
That wasn't the problem with that movie. That movie was disjointed because it had a lot of production meddling, and they ended up fucking it up and reshooting the third act. Josh Trank came out and admitted to all this. But whatever. You don't know what you're talking about.
Like, they don't want to go to the comic book roots of who these characters and their personalities were.
The comic book root, literally, you complained about, look, I'm not going to even get back into it. You've complained about the comic book roots, so shut the fuck up about that.
And that's a big shame, because each of the Fantastic Four members has a distinct and very colorful personality that works in a dynamic that gives them a lot of chemistry with each other. And that's what I want to see. And that's what's going to get people excited to see your movie. These very distinct, exciting personalities finally done right. But they've made so many unnecessary changes. That being said, now we come to the number one reason.
What could possibly be worse than any of these takes you've had? I'm afraid to know what this one is, because you've already talked about the Fantastic Four. So I have no idea what this is going to be.
That has turned me off to Fantastic Four. Now, let's say that we lived in a world where Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm and Silver Surfer were all comic accurate. And maybe they went for a more modernized aesthetic with this film. And maybe...
Comic accurate, but modern. And what era of the comics? Which one? The 90s, when Sue was half naked? That era? Is that the one you want? You want the Kirby era? How about the John Byrne era? Which one of the Fantastic Four eras do you want? You want the Maker? Is that the one you want? I don't know. You're not being specific enough. They've been around for a very long time, so you have to be a little bit more specific.
Sue Storm looked awesome in the promotional, and it did not look like Reed Richards as a character was going to be, in her shadow or anything like that.
I'm still waiting to see what that even means. What does that mean? You didn't give any example. You just said that he's being pushed down by her, but I don't even, you haven't given an example of what that is.
Let's say that all this looked great, all of it was comic accurate. Well, then if this one thing remained, then it would still ruin it for me. Pedro Pascal. To be honest, this movie was over the second they cast him. Why? First of all, going back to what I said in my number 5 reason, this is the worst casting in the entire film. While the other castings were lackluster, but I would see them in these roles and maybe they would fit in them, I could never see Pedro Pascal as this character. And he didn't even shave his mustache, so he's just Pedro Pascal. It was impossible to see Pedro, either visually or personality-wise, as Reed Richards. I knew that there would be no way for him to fit as the character. And with all that we've seen, he cannot embody the character of Reed Richards. He's just a subdued Pedro Pascal in this film. On that note, when I see him in these promotionals and the reasonings for why he might be casting, that kind of confirms a little bit of the rumors behind the scenes. That at least in the...
So I just did a quick search. I was like, who are the top 5 most loved men in Hollywood right now? You know who's number 2? Pedro Pascal. Timothée Chalamet, Pedro Pascal. He's number 2. Michael B. Jordan, Ryan Reynolds, and The Rock. Those are the 5 most beloved actors in Hollywood right now, men in Hollywood. So maybe they picked him because of that reason. Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe they were like, hey, we have 3 actors that we're not totally sure if people know who they are. So we want one of the 4, the lead of the movie, to be someone that people recognize. The lead of the film needs to be someone that everyone knows and loves. So we're going to pick Pedro Pascal. That's how that went. I can almost guarantee you.
Original version of this film that we got leaks for, Pedro Reed Richards is really in the shadow of Vanessa Kirby Sue Storm. And they didn't...
Leaked concept art is not valid. It is not canon. It's not indicative of anything in the finished product. And a lot of that was proven to not even be a part of the project itself. It was all stuff that was just basically speculating on what the movie was going to be.
Want somebody to take over her role or anything. He is the submissive one to her being the leader, which is not Reed Richards' personality at all. So that already tells me that decisions they've made with the writing of his character is going to be drastically different. But then all of this weird stuff and promotional of Pedro Pascal as this daddy or zaddy figure came out, which did the exact opposite and has really made some people kind of grossed out by him and made me really creeped out by him. And once again, if nothing else of these points...
Subtle homophobia there, because I'm pretty sure that you're talking about all of the stuff he did where he was out partying with guys and stuff like that. That's what you're saying. So you're creeped out and grossed out by homophobia. Spoiler alert, Jesterbell doesn't like gay people. Jesterbell's sister doesn't like gay people. Jesterbell's sister worked for, at one time, Ben Shapiro. Spoiler alert, she's not going to like someone that is cozied up with queer people because she has a bias. So it should not be a shock to anyone that Pedro Pascal is number one and she's creeped out by him. Should not be a shock. I'm just putting that out there.
In the film, then I would still be like, how can I go to a film with characters that I'm supposed to like and this universe that I'm supposed to like, and the lead of your film is Pedro Pascal, who, if this movie...
The lead? Wait, I thought Sue Storm was the lead. I thought Sue was the lead of the movie. Didn't you spend the last 12 minutes going back and forth talking about how you didn't like the fact that that was what Marvel was pushing? That women were the leads and they're pushing the men down in the film? Let me run that back. You called him the lead of the film. It's almost like it slipped out because that is the truth and you didn't catch yourself in time.
Then I would still be like, how can I go to a film with characters that I'm supposed to like and this universe that I'm supposed to like, and the lead of your film is Pedro Pascal, who, if this movie is successful, is going to continue to be the lead of Fantastic Four and potentially the MCU going forward into other films.
So again, you said lead twice. That's crazy, fam.
So it's like, when I watched that trailer recently and it felt like they were trying to focus on other characters, I just thought no matter what you change or how you edit this, there's no editing out Pedro Pascal.
So you're mad that the lead of the film that you're seeing in the marketing is Pedro Pascal. But at the same time, you're also mad that Sue Storm is pushing Reed down and Pedro is not getting shown in the promotional materials well enough. So Vanessa, who you were mad that she was the lead of the movie and you thought that she was pushing Reed down the whole time, had me believing that you wanted to see more of Pedro as Reed because that was part of 2 of your issues in your 5 issues. But now you're telling me that the number one issue you have is that you don't like Pedro as Reed and you don't like the fact that he's going to be all over the promotional materials that Marvel puts out supporting the Fantastic Four and the MCU moving forward. So you're asking them to promote Reed more as the lead, but at the same time, you don't like the lead of this movie being Pedro Pascal. This should have been the number 5 on your list because you was talking about like chronological stuff. He was cast before all of these other issues came up. But you saved it for number 1, and now again, you are contradicting your takes.
And as soon as he was cast as that character, that just killed the film and made it so I cannot be excited for it. So yes, Marvel, if you're listening...
So none of that other stuff mattered. Hold on. None of that other stuff mattered. 5 through 2 didn't matter. So why did you even make this motherfucking video? Listen to this.
There's no editing out Pedro Pascal. And as soon as he was cast as that character, that just killed the film and made it so I cannot be excited for it.
I'm not even going to listen to the rest of this. So you went through all of that to get to number 1 and say that your energy and your hype for the movie was killed from the moment Pedro Pascal was cast. And then you spend this whole time creating outrage and drama over other issues with the movie because you want us to believe that you want the movie to be better, while all the while you never had any interest in this movie from the very fucking beginning. This is why your channel is garbage. This is why your content is garbage. And anybody that listens to you should know this is performative. It is all performative projection bullshit.